All right, friends. Well, good morning. So we're going to be looking at some cool pictures this morning. And if you want to answer any of the questions I ask, you can type it in the chat or you can just unmute yourself and we can just have a fun conversation this morning. We're going to record it so we can send it to Miss Jillian in case any of the other students who didn't sign on want to participate later so they have the video. All right. So and you all have been to museums and stuff and you've seen, photos taken over hundreds of years ago. And that technology has been around in some form or fashion since the 1840s. So well over 100 years ago, going on almost 200 years ago now. Now in really old photos, we're used to kind of seeing people like this, right? Serious expressions, usually all sitting down, kind of very stoic, posed. And that's led a lot of people to think, well, why did anybody ever smile, right? In older photos, because you notice, oh, nobody's smiling. They're usually all in black and white. And do you all know why old photos are usually all in black and white? Yeah, Haley, you go ahead and say it, or you can type in the chat.
Well, I always sort of thought because they didn't have color, so they didn't know how to make color.
Yeah, you're correct. Yeah, they didn't have that technology. They didn't know how to make color photos yet. So that comes along later, kind of like color television. For a long time, television was black and white too, and so were the movies. And then they started realizing how to make color film, how to process the colors in pictures. Now there is like a technology now where you can go back to old black and white photos and make them color, which is really cool. So you can add that in now long after the fact. But a reason people, didn't smile a whole lot in these older photos is because, how long does it take to take a photo today? When we go to take a photo today, how fast does that happen? Yeah, you can say it.
About a second?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. You've got your phone. I've got my phone here and I can take a photo, like you said, in a second if I want to. Well, when this photo was taken, it took a lot longer to take a photo. Sometimes it could take up to an hour, 30 minutes to an hour to take a photo. And that was just because of the technology and how long it took to capture the image. So if you're thinking about having to sit somewhere for an hour to take a photo, you're probably not going to look very comfortable. You can't move because it might blur the photo. So you had to be really careful about moving. Actually, in some of the photos you'll see, you might see a blur on the screen, and that means someone was moving. And the photo, the camera didn't know how to capture someone moving. So it's a blur. So you had to sit really still. You had to be careful about movement because if you sit there for a whole hour and you move and you blur the photo and you ruin it, what are you going to have to do? You're going to have to sit there for maybe another hour to do a retake. So that's part of the reason too why people weren't smiling in older photos is you've been sitting there a long time. You don't want to risk blurring the photo by moving your face. And then for a while too, it was considered impolite to smile in photos. Now today, people get mad if we don't smile, right? If we're in a photo, they're like, smile, smile. Well, it used to kind of be the opposite where they didn't want you to smile. This is a photo from the 1860s. These are actually students at one of the local schools in Jonesboro from the Female Academy. But old photos are really cool because they can tell us a lot just by looking at the picture, right? Like we can see the fashion, we can see these ladies' dresses, what they're wearing, how many pieces it is. Because like if you look at some of them, they've definitely got a skirt, a blouse, and then like a jacket you can see kind of on top. You can see their headpieces. Some of them have ribbons in their hair. Some of them have what looks like headbands. And you can see hairstyles. So old photos can tell you a lot. Like I said, this is a more serious photo. Like this is actually a school photo. These were students. Here's a more fun photo from a little later. All right. So this photo's 1890s. So probably about 30 years later. And this photo is outside. So it's not staged in a portrait gallery like that other photo. This is the Fink family here. We know that because it's written on the back of the photo. So a lot of the information we get from these photos, we hope someone writes down info on them. But look at this photo and, what do you think they're getting ready to do in this photo? Yeah.
Dive into the water.
Yeah, dive into the water. Yeah, you can see the guy back there who's getting ready to dive into the water. And then you see this little boy here in front who might be about your all's age. That's Paul Fink. Again, we know because it says on the back of the photo. But I like how he's posed. Look, he's got his like hand up like this. He's having a good time. He's being silly with the camera. So by this time, you see people starting to act silly for the camera and smile and, you know, capture more everyday moments. So a little more relaxed. This photo is a little more relaxed, but still it tells you a whole lot about the time period of the late 1890s, because you see, what do you think they're wearing? What do you think they're wearing? Yeah.
Sort of more comfortable clothes. So like I can sort of tell that with the little boy because I sometimes in older pictures like they're wearing suits inside while the dad just sort of like its pants are sort of rolled up and such. And I can't really see the mom too well, but it sort of doesn't look quite as poofy dresses as the girls in the other photo.
Yeah, no, that's right. So they look like they're about to get in this water. Do you think those are their bathing suits? Yeah. So they look a little weird because we don't wear bathing suits like this today. But yeah, those are actually their swimsuits. And mom back there on the rock is actually wearing a bathing suit dress. Women used to have to wear full dresses to go swimming. They were specially made to go swimming in. We don't do that today, but she's actually wearing like a bathing suit dress. But, you know, they're getting ready to get in the water here. This photo is actually taken at the Sally Hole, which is in Washington County at Clark's Creek. It used to be like the big swimming place. Like today we go to pools. Well, this used to be where everybody used to go to swim, was at the Sally Hole. All right. So you all are going to now use some of your detective skills, and we're going to look at another photo. I'm going to ask you some questions. Okay. May have to move your screen just a little to see the very top of the photo. All right, so take a look at this photo here. And do you see any clues in the photo that would help us know when this photo was taken? Are there any clues that help us know when this photo was taken? Yeah, Haley.
August 15, 1912.
Yeah, yes. So this photo is really handy in that it's nicely dated and everything for us. There in the top right corner, you can see Lane Cornerstone, Washington County. So we know it was taken here in Washington County Courthouse, August 15th, 1912, Jonesboro, Tennessee. So this one gives us a lot of great information. We've got a date, we've got a location, and we've got kind of exactly where in Jonesboro this photo was taken. It was taken at the courthouse. Where do you think the courthouse is in this photo? Yeah.
Maybe outside.
Yeah, we're outside. This one's kind of interesting in that you don't see the courthouse in the photo because they're standing like on its foundation. So what they did was they tore the old courthouse down and they're building the new courthouse. So that big old hole in the ground is where the courthouse was. And now they're going to build the new one there. So it says they're laying the cornerstone of the courthouse. Do y'all know what a cornerstone is, or think you might have a guess as to what a cornerstone is?
It's like a big rock that supports a lot of the foundation.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. Yes, it's an important part of the foundation. And it's kind of like how they're starting the building. Like we're going to put in the cornerstone and we're going to build the new building. So you can see that a lot of people came out for this photo. So whenever we see an old photo, we have to think about, well, why was this photo taken? You know, this one's pretty clear. It was a big day. They were having a celebration. They were laying the cornerstone. So that's why this photo was taken. Like I said, today we're used to taking photos all the time. Like if I see a pretty flower or a pretty sunset, I can just take out my phone and snap a picture. But, you know, when it took longer to take a photo, or, you know, the cameras were much larger and came with a lot of equipment, so they were heavier, you usually had to have a pretty specific reason why you wanted to take a photo. Like maybe because all of your family was together, or maybe because a big event was happening. That's usually why you took a photo. So yeah, this is a big event day in town. Like I said, you can see lots of people out here. What else do you all see in this photo? Just looking at it, what do you see? What's interesting? What's funny? What's weird? One of the things that's weird to me is all these people, see these people standing on this board, looking down on the construction site over this big pit full of like bricks and stuff. So if we find a construction site today, are we supposed to go and walk inside of it and just walk all around it? I mean, no, usually there's like caution tape up and caution cones because they don't want people getting hurt. But it's interesting that here in 1912, we're just letting people walk all over this construction site. And what are they wearing? Are they wearing, casual clothes, or are they all dressed up?
All dressed up.
They are all dressed up, yes. So everybody dressed up to come to this event. And yeah, they're just walking over this site in their big fancy hats, their big fancy dresses. You see some people have umbrellas in the back. It doesn't look like it was raining though. So what else could you use an umbrella for if it's not raining? What else can an umbrella protect you from? Yeah.
The sun.
The sun, yeah. They're probably using it to keep the sun off them. Sometimes you hear that called a parasol for ladies. But yeah, that's probably why they're using their umbrellas. And you also see the poles here, the telephone and electricity poles. So that tells us right there too that the town had electricity then in the early 1900s. So if you come to downtown Jonesboro today, though, you won't see those poles. I mean, we still clearly have electricity, but what they did was in the 1970s, they put all those poles underground. So you no longer see them. So it's kind of cool that here in this photo, 1912, you can see all the wires and all the poles that run down Main Street, but today you don't. So that's a change with time as well. All right, so just looking at this photo, I mean, who do you see? Do you see people of all ages in this photo? Yeah, I see you nodding. Yeah, you definitely see people of all ages. You got some kids. You definitely have plenty of adults. So this definitely looked like it was a big family event. And you can see all the people standing up on top of, I'm not sure what they're standing on top of, but you got a lot of people who found a way to get up high. Maybe it's construction pieces, or like it looks kind of like wood. Even there might be stacks of wood they might be standing up on top of to get a view of what's going on here with the courthouse. So yeah, this is a fun photo because it tells us a lot. And then if you come down Main Street, Jonesboro, actually, some of the buildings you see in the background, you'll still see today. Like those 3 buildings right there in a row that you see between the trees, you'll still see today in Jonesboro. They're still hanging around hundreds of years later. All right, so we're gonna go to the next photo. All right, this one doesn't have as many, clues that it gives to us right away. So if you look at this photo, why do you think this photo might have been taken? What do you think was going on this day when they took this photo? Yeah, Haley.
Some sort of celebration. It looks sort of like they're sitting on sort of like what you sit on whenever like a ball game or something. It's sort of that thing that they sit on. And there's kids, there's grown-ups, and a lot of people.
Yeah, a lot of people. Yeah, no, exactly. So yes, you said ball game, like you sit to watch a ball game. Yeah, like bleachers, right? Looks like they're sitting on bleachers. They all seem to be kind of looking the same direction. I mean, some of them are looking at the camera. It looks like the camera's kind of in the corner, but we all seem to be facing the same way mostly. So we're watching something. We are watching a game. What sport do you think we're watching? What's a sport you can play out in a field?
Baseball?
Yeah, correct. This is a baseball game. Now, you wouldn't know it just by automatically looking at this photo because you don't see any of the baseball players. You just see the crowd, the stand. But actually, this photo has some other information on the back of it, which kind of helped us out. Remember the last photo was them laying the cornerstone of the courthouse. Well, they had a huge week-long party when they laid that cornerstone. And one of the events during that week-long party was a celebratory baseball game. So this is the crowd that went to check out the baseball game. And you can still see here of us still somehow our parasols or our sun umbrellas because we're out in the open field. This event took place in August. If you remember from the previous photo, it was dated in August. It can be pretty hot and sunny in August. So we need to protect ourselves. But again, how are people dressed? Are we dressed all like casual or are we very fancy?
Fancy.
Yeah, we're very fancy. You can even see some top hats. So again, people really dressed up to come to these events because they knew they'd be seen out in public. So when we go watch a baseball game today in the bleachers or the grandstands, do y'all put on your fanciest hat and your long dress to go watch the baseball game? No. So that's changed a little with time too about, we're dressing more for comfort. But these people really dressed up because this was a special event in town and they wanted to look nice. All right, here is our next photo. So again, look at the photo and can you all tell me when it was taken or maybe what was going on?
Was taken December the 31st in 1873, and it was taken in the corner of Lamson Building on January the 1st, 18 something. The other, I can't tell what that one is. Maybe 1874 because I can't see that, and it looks sort of like the building view of Five Burns.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. This is a view of like the big fire. Jonesboro is going to have a big fire on December 31st, 1873. So again, this is a photo that very fortunately tells us a lot because it comes with a caption. So they had a big fire on the night of December 31st, 1873. So this photo was taken the next morning, 1874, January 1st. Happy New Year. It's not a very happy New Year for the town of Jonesboro at that point. And it says, taken from corner of Lampson's building looking southwest. So this photo gives us a lot. It tells us where the photo was taken and what direction it was facing. So today, the Lampson building is where the East Tennessee Hemp Company is if you come to Main Street, Jonesboro. If you stand there and you look southwest, you might have to get a compass to find southwest, but that'll put you looking at Mox, which is right on the corner of Main Street next to the courthouse, the shop Mox. So that really burned out sort of building in the forefront wasn't where Mox is today. And you can see all down the street, all those other buildings that are burned over. I mean, the first two don't have roofs anymore. And it looks like on down, like whole structures are gone. So the buildings that are completely gone, what do you think they were made out of? Yeah.
Wood.
Yeah, they were probably made out of wood. So they were completely burned as opposed to the brick, which just burned down and kind of collapsed. Now you can see all these people out here on the street. You even see a couple dogs out here. People are coming to look, obviously, at what happened because there's going to be a lot of cleanup. You're going to have to do a lot of rebuilding, maybe checking to make sure everybody's okay. Do you see all ages in this photo? Who do you see?
Mainly grown-ups.
Yeah, definitely grown-ups. There might be a couple kids right next to the building because it looks like there's maybe a couple of kids, but mostly grown-ups. Mostly men. And maybe that's because they were involved in the bucket brigade that had to help put out the fire. Do you all know how a bucket brigade works?
Sort of like you get I'm just sort of guessing, you get a bucket and you just sort of flash it on. So you sort of you put it in the water, pass it to the person then, and then you pass it to the next person, pass it to the next person, pass it to the next person. Yeah. And then the last person throws it onto the fire. That's what I get.
Exactly. No, that's right. So you'd have to have a bunch of people, right, to pass the water all the way down because you can't see it in this photo, but back behind these buildings, you do have a creek. But still you have to get the water from the creek to the fire. So yeah, that's why you form the bucket brigade. So you need a lot of people to try and help put out the fire. Now, because of fires like this, Jonesboro is going to have a lot of really nasty fires in the late 1800s. And because of those fires, they finally decided to get firefighting equipment in like 1887. We actually still have those original fire engines in our museum. But yeah, it's because things like this, because it was really hard to put out a fire, a big fire, especially using bucket brigade. Now we have a lot of copies of this photo because the photographer who took it actually sold it as a souvenir. So he made lots of copies of this photo because he kind of sold it as a commemorative photo of the event. Now, when we talk about, who's taking these photos, like big town photos like these, do you think like a person's taking them, or do you think it might be like the newspaper or a professional photographer? Yeah.
It's sort of news.
Yeah, just collecting news. Yeah. So usually with like older photos, especially if they're big events, you probably was the newspaper taking it, or like the town, like the official town photographer. We had Jonesboro's always had a photographer on Main Street. So, they also had like their own studio where people would come to them and get like family photos taken, but people in town knew they had a camera. So if there was a big event, they'd be like, oh, you need to come take a photo, because not everyone had a camera. Today, we all have a version of a camera, but for a long time, you just have a couple people in town who had a camera. And so you'd want to make sure they knew about big events so they could come take a photo. All right. Here is our next photo. So y'all have kind of just looking at it. Any guesses as maybe why this photo was taken or when it was taken? Yeah.
It sort of looks like there's a lot of like Black family and such. I wonder if it's something like some sort of school or something.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're absolutely correct. So obviously we see here, we have a lot of Black people, African-American people together. And when you look at old photos, it helps too to notice who's in the photo and who's not in the photo. And a lot of that speaks to segregation, which was a common practice, unfortunately, for years and years about separating people based on skin color. This photo was actually taken at the African-American school because segregation, whites and Blacks couldn't go to school together. So this is the Warner Institute. It is a brick building you see behind the students here. And these are all the students at the Warner Institute. This school, actually, if you come to Jonesboro, today it's a big brick house right beside the cemetery. Still there today, not a school anymore. Today it's just a private house. But what ages do you see in this photo? Do you see all ages? Oh yeah, definitely. You can see definitely very young kids in the front and then getting older in the back. And that's because the Warner Institute educated a whole bunch of grades all together. You started school there young, and then you continue your training, sometimes kind of up through high school even, because there wasn't like another academy of learning at the time locally for the African-American community. And then you can also see their teachers with them as well. And obviously this photo was taken on the lawn of the school. And if you look down in the very bottom right corner, this photo is still kind of in its cardboard backing. They would put, photographers would put this backing around their photos, like professional photographers, and this photo is still kind of encased in it. Sometimes that backing, as you can see, will break away with time, but the photo will remain. But if you look down the bottom right-hand corner, you see in very fancy lettering, O.L. Hensley, Jonesboro, Tennessee. And O.L. Hensley was one of the professional photographers in town. So we actually have a lot of photos from him, and he put his mark on a lot of his photos as a way to identify that, hey, I took this photo. But clearly he took his camera up there and got a school picture for them that day. And we know this photo, we don't have an exact date, but we know it's the late 1800s, just based on what we know about the school and when it was open. All right, so here is our next photo. All right, looking at this photo, Who do you see? And why do you think maybe this photo was taken? Yeah.
Several signs. There's a lot of like sort of signs holding up, like almost like some sort of protest.
Mm-hmm.
Something. There's a cross. Lead us not into temptation. Like maybe something like a cross, and it's sort of like some sort of church.
Yeah, no, that's all really good. Very observant. Yes. So this photo it is a protest or a march, and it is for actually temperance or prohibition, but essentially these people are protesting alcohol. They don't want people to sell alcohol. They don't want people to buy alcohol. They don't want it to exist. So it's part of the temperance movement. Now, do you see, like looking around, do you see all ages and do you see like different skin colors? Yeah. So this is one of the photos we have where it's not a segregated photo. It's very much everyone is together in this photo. So that's really interesting to pay attention to in photo as well. It's about, when different communities come together and why are they coming together? Well, in this case, they're coming together under the common goal of getting rid of alcohol. And the lady in the very front in the black dress, the very, very front of the photo closest to the street, that is Julia Bullard Nelson. And she was the teacher at the Warner Institute for a long time, the school we just talked about in the last photo. And you can see in the front, these are all her students at the Warner Institute with the signs they made, because she was part of the temperance movement, and she included her students and their parents, you can see their parents too, in this march, in this rally, because there was going to be a vote on abolishing alcohol coming up at the courthouse. So do you think maybe this photo was taken at the courthouse? Yeah, it's not the courthouse we have today. It's actually the one they tore down to build the one we have today. But yeah, this is right outside the Washington County Courthouse on Main Street. And you can also see lots of members of the community turned up to support this movement, to maybe help influence the people voting or the lawmakers to be like, hey, this is important. This is how we think you should vote. So here are our voices. So this is a really cool photo. It's hard to tell at the very bottom because it's kind of washed out, but there is writing. It says Jonesboro, Tennessee, and then it gives a date of 1887. So at the very bottom of the photo, but it's really hard to tell. You kind of have to really zoom in. All right. Good job. Y'all are good at this. Okay, so our next one, a little different. Why, just looking at this photo, why do you think maybe all these people got together on this day that led to this photo being taken? Yeah.
Well, by the border, sort of over in the background, it almost looks sort of like some sort of parade is about to happen. But there is sort of like in the middle behind whatever simplet thing, there looks to be like a board or something behind some sort of desk or something. Now the people are lined up, and maybe like a parade or something.
Ooh, yeah. So we're all lined up. Yep. So maybe parade's coming through. And you notice, yeah, there's a boy here in the very middle of the photo, and it looks like he's behind something, right? That little something, which is hard to see, is actually the reason everyone is together in this photo. And we know about this photo because it was taken by the paper, the Herald and Tribune, and they wrote about this photo. So this is 1912. So a little later, we're moving back into the 1900s now. And in front of that boy is a brand new sewing machine. And the store, you can see right back there, it's kind of hard to see under the awning, it says Shipley's. That was a hardware store, but they also sold furniture and they sold sewing machines. So they were giving away this brand new sewing machine on this day in 1912. And these are all the people who came out to enter the contest to try and win this sewing machine. Why would it have been like a big deal to win that sewing machine? Why was a sewing machine important? Yeah.
Maybe it's really important because whenever you are like sewing was hard to do, and usually you did it by like doing it, like put the needle in a thread and just had to do it yourself. But now you have this new machine, so your fingers won't get tired.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yes, most people are still sewing their clothes, right? They're making most of their clothes by hand. It takes a long time. And if you get a nice sewing machine, especially one with a nice little automatic pedal, you can do things a whole lot faster. And, some people couldn't own a sewing machine because they were expensive. So here was one for free. So take a chance to come and win it. Now you'll see someone on the a couple people actually on the very right-hand side of this photo that look really blurry. So what does that mean they were doing if they're really blurry? Were they moving? Yeah, they were probably like running or walking to get into the photo. But you can see what happened if you moved, like you were just a blur on a photo. So that was a reason to try and stand a little still. Now by 1912, it's not gonna take an hour to take a photo, but it's still gonna take a few minutes and you're still gonna have to stand there and try not to move, as you can see. Another cool thing I like about this photo is the guys hanging out the top window. If you come to Main Street, Jonesboro today, this is the antique store. And you can stand right out front of the antique store and see that window those guys are hanging out of. And then what else do you see in this photo sort of hanging? What is that running in front of the buildings?
Electric wire.
Yeah, the electric wires. Yep, they are definitely there in 1912. So there they are. Like I say, you come today, you don't see that, but here they are. All right. All right, this is, I think, almost our last one. So, all right, this photo. I see your face. So what's going on here? What do you think has happened?
Looks sort of like a train just fell down, basically. And there's all these cars on there, and I think the girl with sort of the weird thing on her head is sort of like a nurse, and she's going through being sure everybody's all right. And then there's like carriages, like a few cars, such all around here, sort of like checking it out. But it looked like the train went off track, and looks like there's some wooden logs after the coal, and looks like the coal just sort of spilled out, and they're sort of in the middle of the country too. So
yeah, these are all great observations. So yeah, y'all are getting the hang of this. This photo definitely, it's a train wreck. The train has had an accident. It has jumped the track. It has slipped the track. Something has happened. That used to be much more common than it is today, just because technology change and safety feature changes. You saw the coal for sure. The train's hauling coal, and then very good, you saw the logs. So we're hauling a lot of like lumber, coal, a lot of stuff to build with and to make energy with, to produce power with. You got a lot of people here hanging out in the hillside. You notice the woman standing up in the cap. Maybe she is a nurse. She could be going around checking, making sure everyone's okay. You have a couple of guys posing down here in front of the train wreck, kind of like they want to get a photo with it. And then you can see cars in the background. And even, what else do you see in addition to the cars back there? What's another form of transportation in this photo? You've got trains, you've got cars, and then what else do you see?
A carriage.
A carriage, yeah. This photo is really cool because you have all these different versions of transportation in this one photo. So even though we don't have a date on this photo, that helps us date it, right? Because we know that people are starting to own cars. So that's going to put it into like the early 1900s. And just by looking at these cars, we're probably talking about the 1920s, just based on the styles of the cars. You've got poles there. So telephone poles, maybe connected to that little shop right there. So we've got electricity as well. Even though everything looks very country, you've got a car, you've got roads, and you've got electricity. So this photo is interesting in that a lot of the people in this photo just came to check out the train wreck. They heard there was a train wreck. They were going to go check it out. And you can see some people drove or rode their carriages to come check out the train wreck. Now, fortunately, we know nobody was hurt in this incident. But you can see this is a big mess. So how long do you think it's going to take to clean something like this up? Probably like a while, right? Yeah. This is not going to be an easy cleanup. But something that's fun that you all can do as a writing exercise later if you want to is I'll send this PowerPoint to Miss Jillian, but you can pick someone in an old photo. What's a great writing exercise is to pick someone in an old photo, like maybe that woman standing up that you saw, or maybe one of the guys standing by the train. Pick someone in the photo and write like a letter or like a journal entry from their perspective that day. Like what would they have been thinking? Or what might you have been thinking if you were that person this day and you saw, like, you went to go see the train wreck, or maybe you saw it happen. So that's a fun exercise you can do when you're working with old photos, is, you know, try to think what these people were feeling and thinking. Like some people may be concerned, some people may be like worried because now all the other trains are going to be blocked. And then some people may have just been like, oh, hey, this is, you know, a fun thing to do. We're going to go down and look at the train wreck. So, or maybe some of these people are going to help. Like, it looks like maybe some people are helping down there to try and turn, like, right the engine back up on the track. Now, actually, this is Johnson City today. I don't know where you all live, but this is in Johnson City today. Does Johnson City look like this? No, not anymore. You got a lot more buildings today, especially right here. But this is, if you're familiar with Johnson City, oh goodness, and I don't know what's there now, but it's near the Kroger, near ETSU. It's off of what we call Walnut Street, West Walnut Street. There's a factory, it used to be a factory right there on the right side of the road. It used to be Burlington Mills, but then it became a restaurant kind of. It used to have a gumbo place in it, but I have no idea what's there now because they just changed. But this is right there in that area where like Kroger is and all those houses are today. So very much it's all built up now, and it doesn't look like that farmland anymore. That's changed a whole lot with time. But you can see the road right there. That little stretch of road there is actually West Walnut. So that's still the road today. And the train tracks don't run over West Walnut anymore. Later on, they're going to move the train tracks to a little further back. And maybe this is part of the reason they moved the train tracks, is because they kept having issues here in this turn with the trains sort of topping over. All right. Okay, this is the last one. So this one's interesting. If you look at these two photos, they don't look like they have anything alike, but what is the one thing you notice that's a similarity between these two photos? What's the one thing they have in common?
Both sort of look like they're in a barn, sort of. Like,
yeah, okay, they are both outside. So actually they have more than one thing in common. Yeah, they are both outside, but does each photo have a barrel in it? Yeah. So you wouldn't think these two photos are related, but this photo is kind of weird in that barrel down there in the corner of the photo in the bottom was actually part of a, unfortunately, murder investigation. And these people who were very fancy dressed, again, were very fancy dressed because we know we're going to have a photo taken, have come to pose with that barrel that may have been involved in that investigation. So sometimes you find two photos you think don't have anything in common, but you start noticing clues that you can put them together. You guys are really good photo sleuths, really great photo sleuths. So good job. I will send this whole thing to Miss Jillian that she can send out. So if you want to do that writing exercise later, you can. And do you have any other questions for me? Yeah.
When was this photo taken?
This is like 1800s. This one's a little weird. The top one, because it says it's going to say December 71 on it, but that's because a copy of the photo was taken in the 1970s. But the photos themselves were taken, well, actually, no, not late 1800s. It was early 1900s, like 1909. And we know that because that's when the trial for the murder investigation was going on, was in 1909. So that helps us date these photos because we know they were attached to that trial. But yeah, these are early 1900s. But you know, fashion helps us know that, like also the ladies' hats and then the clothes they're wearing help us kind of date the photo as well. But those are good things. Yeah, those are all things you want to look at to kind of help you date a photo. Like I said, you all were great photo sleuths. So thank you for helping me figure all this stuff out. And I hope you have a good day. Okay, bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.